Hello, my name is Jessica Gray, and today I will be presenting a portion as well as my partner Max on the paradigmatic shifts in the 20th century policing. So first, I will be going over my table of contents. On slide one, I'm going to go over the understanding of the shift in the policing area, and then the second slide, I will be going over the political era. And the third slide, I will be going over the reform and the professional era. And for the fourth slide, I will be going over the civil rights era and crisis of legitimacy. For number five, we'll be going over the community policing movement. For number six, we'll be going over the war on crime and militarization. For number seven, we'll be going over technological policing. And for number eight, we'll be going over major themes across the 20th century. So, understanding the shift, the paradigmatic is a major change in how an institution understands its purpose and how it operates. In the 20th century, American policing went through several distinct transformations in response to corruption, public criticism, social movement, crime trends, and technological advancement. These changes were not minor adjustments. They involved shifts in leadership structure, hiring standards, enforcement strategies, and community relationships. According to the National Institute of Justice, from 1968, policing evolved from political control to professional reform and later toward community engagement. Their goal was to better engage the community so that police were not necessarily had to be involved with lawmakers. Each model attempted to address weakness in the previous systems. However, every transition also introduced new challenges. These historical shifts continue to shape modern debates about accountability, public trust, and reform. And that source is from the National Institute of Justice. The political era. So during the political era, police departments were closely tied to local political leaders. Things that we kind of still see today. A lot of times it's still intertwined with political leaders, and sometimes they are loosely ran by political leaders instead of um, the officers in the court. Officers were often hired through systems rather than merit-based exams. So it's essentially based off of what they knew and where their power was. Departments were decentralized and lack standardized training. According to the National Institute of Justice, again, police focus primarily on maintaining order and supporting political authorities rather than enforcing laws naturally. So what this did was it took away policing from the community and more so served those who were already in power and did not need serving. So it took away from what the community actually needed it. Note that corruption and favoritism were common due to weak oversight. While officers often knew members of their communities personally, enforcement practices varied significantly between cities. So, public dissatisfaction with corruption and political interference ultimately led reformers to demand more structured and professional model of policing. So, like I said before, they were essentially just catering to those in law and making sure that they stayed in office instead of doing what they were supposed to do, which is taking care and tending to community. The Reform Professional Era. So, the Reform era was an effort to eliminate political corruption and create a professional law enforcement system. So, the the civil service exams replaced political hiring and former police academies were established. So departments adopted centralized command structures to make things neutral. According to the National Institute of Justice, rapid response to crime became a primary goal. Technology, technology such as patrol cars and radio communication increased mobility and coordination, such as we see today. However, note that this emphasis on crime control reduced informal community engagement, so they were only focusing on the bad and not engaging with the community like police should. Um, Officers were encouraged to remain detached and objective. While this model reduced corruption and improved organization, it created distance between police and residents, which we still kind of see today. So the civil rights era and crisis of legitimacy, this was between the 1950s and the 1970s. This was when police tensions with community heightened because communities became more visible and more intense. So during the civil rights movement, police were often involved in enforcing segregation laws and managing protests. So again, they were not necessarily tending to the community. What they were doing was enforcing laws that separates a community. Now, whether that was their choice or not, that was their job at hand. And the only thing that it really did was separate communities and take police officers and policing out of communities because they felt as if they were not able to go to these police officers with an emergency due to the color of their skin. Televised confrontations made many Americans question whether policing was fair and whether force was being used appropriately, again, as we see today. The NAACP discusses how enforcement practices during this time disproportionately impacted African American communities, which depended which deepened mistrust. Even though departments were more organized than before, structure alone did not guarantee fairness. The National Institute of Justice explains that this period exposed serious limits in the professional model, especially when it came to community relations. This era showed efficiency was not enough, public trust and legitimacy were just as important.